Good evening, everybody. I think we've allowed a couple minutes for everybody to arrive. Having said that, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining our first public meeting for the South Lane County Park Improvements Project. As we begin tonight, we wanted to go over some tech housekeeping about how the Zoom meeting works. Participants are muted during the presentation, so there will only be one speaker at a time. But there will be Q&A at the end. We'll ask that you submit your questions and comments through the Q&A feature at the top of your screen as indicated by the blue arrow. And I'll also wait just another bit here in case any viewer is having audio difficulty. If so, please note at the bottom of this screen that you can dial in via 669-900-9128. The webinar ID is 990-5912-1193. And again, in case anyone is experiencing audio difficulty, please call this number 1-669-900-9128. And again, the webinar ID 990-5912-1193. For those of you connected by a mobile device, you can use the same Q&A feature, which will be at the bottom of your screen. And the last bit of housekeeping, we wanted to let you know who will be speaking tonight. My name is Nick Farrakone. I'm a park project manager in the County of San Diego Department of Parks and Recreation, and I'm the manager assigned to this project.
I'm Anna Perlant. I'm a land use environmental planner as well as a wildlife biologist in the Resource Management Division of County Parks and Recreation.
I'm Joanna Solomon. I'm a region manager with the Operations Division, and I oversee the maintenance and operations of facility in the East County.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Geisler. I'm the Marketing and Public Outreach Manager for County Parks, and I oversee our website, social media, special events, and campaigns.
Good evening, Emily Hubbard, Senior Park Project Manager, and I oversee development projects in South San Diego.
And before we get into our actual meeting content, I wanted to take us through a quick roadmap of what's ahead. Introduction and overview, park improvements planning process, South Lane County Park background, South Lane County Park today, opportunities and constraints, potential additions and improvements, the next step, the survey, and Q&A. The purpose of this meeting is to find out from you, the Crest community and visitors to South Lane County Park, what kind of improvements or additions do you want to see at this park location? This meeting is designed to gauge your opinions and collect feedback. It's also posted online, so people who can't join us tonight will still have the opportunity to participate in the park planning process. With your input, both live tonight and via the survey, we'll compose a plan for the park that reflects those preferences. Our second milestone comes from identifying what we can do in the short term and long term based on the resources we have available and what's feasible at the site. Through this process, we'll be able to formalize our park improvement project plan. South Lane County Park is located in Crest, which falls in the County Supervisorial District 2. It is part of the Crest, Dehesa, Granite Hills, Harbison Canyon community planning area. It was the community, likely many of you, who helped drive the acquisition of the land where we built this park. A small group of residents wrote a letter to the county in 1974 to establish interest in this property, but no funding was available at that time. Some 5 years later, after a series of hearings, the county acquired the park, which was originally designated as undeveloped. A community-based group called the Equestrians A horse riding group drove the initial improvements to the property, and some of those are still here today. Sadly, in 2003, wildfires tore through this area, heavily impacting the property. This image is an aerial shot from 2004, and you can see the dense tree canopy and the fire damage that led to the removal of many trees that at one point had provided shade on the north and east sides of the property. And this is a more current aerial, and you can see there's very little tree canopy coverage left. But just to orient ourselves a bit before we look more closely at the park is bounded generally by Crest School to the north, residential areas to the east and west, and South Lane to the south. Starting from the upper left and going clockwise, the northwest corner is near the school and library, where there's also a secondary access to the park. It's a somewhat shaded area. There's an access road across the northern boundary of the park between the school, and the park, and drainage crosses here into the park itself. As a result of that flow, the upper central portion of the park is a drainage and runoff area, which is often wet. The main feature on the east side is a very nice, well-established trail which runs north-south. And that takes us to the southwest corner, where improvements have been made. The main improvements are the access off the main road, trails leading to the main horse ring, and also that trail on the east side, some picnic tables placed under shade next to the parking area. And this area also has a hitching post and is used for staging area for equestrians and other park users. There are two other main built features of the park, the main horse ring and the small horse ring. There's some bench seating underneath slight tree shade on the northeast side of the small ring. This process to make improvements to the park will be shared via 3 public meetings. Public meeting 1, tonight's meeting, is being held to introduce you to the project and to invite you to provide input on potential improvements or additions. The related survey will be live for 2 weeks, and we encourage you to share feedback here and through that survey. The next meeting will take place sometime in June. This is when we'll come back with an initial conceptual design based on your preferences. You'll have the chance to review the plan at this meeting and provide feedback on design direction to the design team. The third meeting is tentatively slated for August. At this meeting, we will present a revised plan, which will be based on your input, public review, and revisions. We'll also share a timeline at that time for moving forward, which will include construction and estimated completion times. As we consider improvements or additions, we want to look at our best opportunity areas for making improvements, as well as identify any environmental constraints. On the left is the same aerial map we looked at earlier, and on the right is an aerial which we had done more recently, or a map we had done more recently, which shows habitat and natural features. In general terms, we can do work in the areas that are shaded in brown in that map on the right side. The areas that are gray are already built, but could potentially get some improvements. The blue lines in the center and north center areas of this image represent drainage or water flow and will be avoided. The light green color is eucalyptus woodland, which means we can potentially do work in that area if we don't need too much space or make too great an impact on those trees. What's not shown on this map are cultural resources. We can't show the cultural resources for confidentiality reasons, but I would like to share that we always strive to balance recreation opportunity with efforts to protect and preserve our land, native habitats, and valuable cultural resources. So that takes us back to that big question we asked at the beginning. What improvements would you like to see at South Lane County Park? Would you add more of what's there now? Should something be removed or replaced or upgraded? Or would you really like to see something new added? On the right is a glimpse of our survey, which provides a comprehensive list of options to choose from. And of course, we also have follow-up questions which ask you to write something in if your preferences are not listed. We have options to show here too. For example, shade itself, starting with adding more shade trees and shaded seating. This could include trees along trails, trees for shaded group picnic areas, or occasional seating in shade along trails. We can also look at children's play areas. Here's a newer style of playground which has been built at many of our park locations, nature play. These features and structures are made of all natural materials to teach kids about the environment and also to blend in well with the environment. There could be informative and educational signage about natural features and habitat. There could even be a viewing platform. Bike features can be added to trail sections, or new trail sections can be created to accommodate bike features. You might even be interested in more active recreation amenities, like a pickleball court or basketball courts. Or your preference could be to improve existing equestrian facilities or add something simple, like horseshoe pits. So we've looked at the park and we've looked at a few options, and now it's time to start to get your input. We begin this process by asking you to take our survey, which is live and online now. The links are here, but we'll also add them into the chat and post them to our website, sdparks.org. The survey, again, is up live now and will remain live for 2 weeks until April 22nd. Once we have your input, we'll start to create a park design, which you'll see and review in public meeting number 2. Now we'd like to go ahead and open this up to Q&A, and to ensure we get a full account of all questions asked, we'd like you to please type them in the Q&A panel. Our host, Jessica Geisler, will lead this section to ensure we don't miss anything.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. We do have our first question, and this one comes in from Candy. She's asking, based on her experience at the park, she says there's 3 areas where electrical, landscaping, piping has been done. She's asking if we're aware of the cultural resources on the rock. And I think probably a good question to ask would just be, how do we survey for cultural resources, and what might we do to protect those sensitive cultural resources like these? And I think this would be a great question for Anna.
Hi, that is a great question. We actually have conducted a cultural resource survey. So archaeologists and a Native American monitor have gone out to the site and completed a thorough survey of the entire site. Cultural resources are confidential, so we cannot say where they were found, but we are making sure that we avoid any impacts to cultural resources. And sorry, Jessica, was there more to that question?
Oh, just what processes do we follow to make sure that we've logged all of those resources, and then how do we protect them moving forward?
Perfect. So we logged all the resources when they completed the cultural resource survey. In addition, we have a confidential map that development has as well in-house. And so they are making sure that when the park is planned, that they will not be impacting them. We also had a biological survey conducted on the site, as well as a wetland delineation, to ensure that the resources that should be protected are protected.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think others might still be writing right now, so I'll let you know when a new question pops up. This could be a great opportunity to talk about the funding for the park. How is it being funded? And this would be a really good question for Emily.
Thank you, Jessica. The project budget is about $650,000. That includes our design costs, environmental surveys, as well as construction. Part of that money comes from our PLDO funds, and then also for our park expansion improvements.
Great, thank you so much. This question comes from James. He's asking, will any non-native trees be planted there again? The only native tree that seems to be doing well is that cottonwood tree in the north. This would be, let's see, a good question for either Anna or Joe.
We will take this into account when we're planning the park. Obviously, native trees are important to us, and we appreciate that you're concerned about that. It's important to us as well. So we will be taking that into account in our design element of when we're redesigning the park.
Yes, and we're currently working with our in-house arborist, agricultural biologists to take a look at all the existing trees there and kind of plan out maybe an updated landscaping plan that will work in conjunction with this project as well. So it's an ongoing effort right now.
Great, thank you, Joe. There's a question from Pat that involves notifications for this meeting. Could we talk a little bit about how we promoted this event? I can share that at least for my part, we posted to our website, sdparks.org, and our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. We realize not everybody has social media, so we also create a flyer and we distribute that through various stakeholders, but also through mailer. And I don't know if Emily wants to speak a little more about that.
Sure. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, we take a look at the surrounding area and we go out, depending on the size of the neighborhood, anywhere from 2 to 5 miles radius of the park. For this particular project, our first mailer went out to about 2,300 community members. And then we will follow up in the same way for the next meetings, for meeting number 2 and number 3. The other way is that you can connect with Park Project Manager Nick Farracone, and his information will be included in this presentation. You can email him, you can email any of us at Parks, you can go to our website and find more information about the park, and also get on an email list so that you will be notified directly with our follow-up presentations.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Pat, we hear you. Thank you for your comment there. We'll see what's going on. If you don't mind, we might reach out to you after this meeting if it's okay. I just want to check your address to make sure that you're part of our mailing service and you receive that information. And if not, we'll make sure that you do in the future, as we still have 2 public meetings after this. All right, we have another question from Sandy. She's asking why cultural resources are confidential. That's one part of the question, so let's start with that. Anna?
So I think this would be a great question for our group program manager for the resource management division to explain it more.
Sure. So what we mean by confidential is the physical location of where we found resources is something that we don't disclose publicly just because of the risk that people will be, have the best intentions and be interested in viewing them and inadvertently impact the resources. So that's why we keep the, specific physical location of where those resources are located confidential.
Great, thank you. And then the other part of her question is, are we taking or considering taking away the horse arena? She says it's a vital resource for those of us who have older horses who need an out and can be ridden, and the pens are vital for younger horses in training. This might be a good Emily question.
Thank you. We will be collecting all the information. We don't have any plans right now to remove any features. So this meeting tonight is to gather as much information from you guys as possible. We're here to listen to you, and we want to understand your needs and your desires for the park, what needs to stay, if anything needs to go or not. We don't anticipate touching anything that the community is actively using or really would like to see more of in the park.
All right, thank you so much. And I would encourage anybody who's on this call right now to type in the types of amenities you'd like to see. Again, it's not a full refresh of the park, but there are some really cool opportunities we can take advantage of, and it's up to you. So you let us know what you want to see, what you want to have improved on site, and we'll take all of that into consideration moving forward with that concept design. So feel free to drop that in the Q&A pane here. We could talk a little bit about park operations. Joe, do you want to share what it looks like a day in the life of a park ranger and kind of maintaining a property like this?
Sure. You know, we will have staff dedicated to patrolling the park like we currently have now, and providing maintenance and operational and performing them at the park. And that can include anything from, you know, veg management to creating fire breaks, weed abatement, and just ensuring that it's a safe experience for everyone there, and that we're protecting our natural resources as well. But our rangers typically tend to roam and go to different parks that they're also responsible for. So you may not see someone there 24/7 throughout the entire day, 7 days a week, but there will be contact with the park 7 days a week, a minimum of once a day, to ensure that we're addressing anything that may come up throughout the day, whether it's enforcement-wise or maintenance-wise. And then our park rangers also do a lot of interpretive programming as well, which is exciting. So depending on some of the updates or amenities that might be included as part of this project, then we can look into some cool like educational programs that will teach folks about the history of the site, the natural habitat there, and even just share some of what our park rangers do day to day and do more of a hands-on experience for kids and families to enjoy.
Great, thanks, Joe. And then just as a reminder, what are park hours?
Sorry, hit the wrong button there. Park hours are 9:30 to sunset, and that's a pretty typical operational hours for most of our parks in the system.
Great, thank you. We have a vote from Ben. He wants a Frisbee golf course, so noted. We have that on our list right now. We have a question from James. He's asking, have any other names been proposed for this park? For example, Jimmy Johnson Park. This is somebody who grew up in Crest, and James says he always thought Southland sounded rather drab. What is our policy for naming parks? I think this could be a question all of us could answer. I'm not sure if anybody wants to take that one. I can say that for when we do name parks, they're typically based on the location of where that park property is. We tend not to name them after individuals. It doesn't mean it hasn't happened. It's just not typical within the county park system. But we can certainly note this in our meeting recording and our notes, and talk to our leadership team and the execs and see what the options are. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, we have a comment from Butch. He's saying, why is there a need to change the park? People here enjoy it the way it is right now. Great comment. That is a really great thing actually to submit in your survey. Let people know it's fine as is. Don't do anything. Don't touch it. We certainly have resources we can spend on this, improving existing amenities if you'd like, instead of adding new stuff. But again, this is your call. So that's why we're hosting this meeting. I don't know, Emily, if you want to add anything else about that process of just kind of picking amenities and making changes.
Yeah, Jessica, you pretty much covered it. But yeah, this is your meeting that we want to get as much information as possible. And please fill out the survey. It's really important for us to understand what you want to see in the park. And like you said, if you don't want to see any improvements, we can do that too. And maybe some of the money goes towards, upkeep of like planting new trees and that sort of thing. So it can also be a light touch. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to come in and put a bunch of stuff in the park. If you like it the way it is, and maybe we can improve a trail or something as simple as that will give it a little bit of a facelift, but at the same time maintain the integrity and what you love about the park currently.
Thank you, Emily. Linda has a comment here. She says she's received multiple requests that horse rings should remain intact. So noted, that is on our list. Thank you so much for that feedback. She also says that she just got the notice for this an hour ago, so not many people have had a chance to weigh in. We hear you. We are recording this meeting, so please know that tomorrow we will have a recording up on our website, and we'll probably post a notice to our social media channels as well. But if you visit sdparks.org, there's a section called Public Meetings, and within there you'll see all the latest and greatest from all of our most recent public meetings, including any recordings. So you can pick that up there, and then the links to the surveys will be there as well. She has one more question. She says, will the park be able to be rented out for special events? That's a great question. That one goes to Joe.
Yeah, so everything's a possibility, right? With however the community decides to go and whatever direction we decide to go with this project. And events are definitely part of our bread and butter for this department. So we definitely support community events that bring people together. So that's definitely something that we can look into and see if it's a good fit for that location, because we also have to take into consideration the natural resources there, but also the folks and our neighbors that we want to make sure we're being respectful of while we're looking into planning events of a larger scale and size. So definitely a great question. I think it's definitely something that we can look into and do some research on and come back to you with.
Great, thank you. Sandy says, we already have a basketball court at Nancy Jane, so let's not start cementing slabs in the park, please. Noted, thank you. That is really, really good feedback. Again, it sounds like we have a lot of residents who want to keep it kind of as it is, and so it sounds like our team is listening, and that any design ideas that they put forth will certainly reflect what you guys talk about here and also in the surveys. Ben has a comment. He says, the water drainage areas of the park used to be more like a creek during the rainy season. It is now more like a marsh in the north end due to the runoff from the school. Will this be fixed, as the trail is often flooded during rainy times and makes it hard to walk? That could be an Emily question, it sounds like.
I'll start, and then I'll probably have Anna weigh in as well. So we will look at all of the existing site conditions and see how we can improve upon them. This is also good input, and we reach out to the community to let us know what happens on a day-to-day basis. Joe is probably very aware of what happens in the park as far as the existing conditions, and we will work together with all of our design team to make sure that we're creating a safe environment, protecting natural resources, and then also looking at some of those potential problem areas that we want to improve upon and make better for the community and for the users. Anna, did you have anything to add, or Joe?
I think that was perfect. We are trying to protect our natural resources at the park, as you said, Emily, but we also want to make sure that it's safe for everyone. So we will be analyzing the entire park and how we can make it safe while also protecting the resources.
All right, thank you. This question comes from Pat. She's asking, will the county pay for water and electricity for horse events? That is probably an operations question. I'm going to hand that one over to Joe.
Yes, so we would pay for the utilities associated with any events or operations at the park.
Good stuff, thank you. While we give folks another minute to ask any additional questions, we might want to just mention, there's a question that we typically get is, are there any tax impacts to residents? Taxes to local residents will not increase as a result of the park being updated. However, studies do show that property values tend to increase with a high quality park nearby. So wanted to throw that out there. Another question we typically get is, will I have to pay to use the park? Currently, there are no day use fees, and I can let Joe talk a little more about that, but typically those types of fees are reserved for larger park properties with a lot of on-site amenities. So Joe, do you want to talk about the fee structure at all?
Yeah, sure. I don't anticipate that this would be a pay to play sort of park or a fee-based park. So amenities will be free of charge for the use of the local community. However, if there are special events or private events that want to take place at the park where that amenity would be taken away from the general public, then there would likely be a private reservation fee associated with that. But otherwise, the community can come and enjoy and take part in all the amenities there free of charge.
Cool, thanks so much. All right, Butch has a question. Is this improvement a state-funded proposition or is it private? So Emily, do you want to talk a little bit about project funding again, and where all those different funds, or all of the funds come together to help pay for these types of improvements? You're on mute right now. Oh.
Button wouldn't click. Yeah, so part of the funding for this project comes from our PLDO, which is the, sorry, I am still, of course, a little bit nervous here.
Parkland dedication ordinance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Parkland dedication ordinance, and those funds come from private development that feeds into each of our planning groups and provides these types of amenities and allows us to fund these projects through those resources. Some of our funding also comes from grants. We may be seeking grants for opportunities for this project. We seek grants a lot for our parks. And I believe that that's where the funding is going to come from for this particular one.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other comments or questions? Oh, here's one. All right. Pat says Nancy Jane County Park has tennis and basketball courts and children's play areas. So horses, hikers, and seating areas would be nice in this park. Great, great recommendation. Totally hear you on that. And I agree. It's great to have a diversity of parks close to you so you have different locations for different types of recreation. So we'll take note of this. Thank you. And maybe as a reminder, what is the timeline for this park? So right now we're at public meeting 1, right? We'll have 2 subsequent public meetings. But if we were to make improvements, what does it look like for a reopening? And that could be an Emily question or it could be a Joe question.
Just the timeline in general of the project. Maybe Emily, you can talk about the development schedule, and then I can jump in there at the end with the fun news, the reopening of the park.
For sure. I'm actually going to turn this one over to Nick Farracone, who's the project manager. He's a little bit more involved in the timeline for the project.
Sure, thank you. Our second public meeting will be in June, and at that time we'll bring back our first plan, which will be based on all the feedback you guys are giving us tonight and through the survey. So again, I've heard a lot of great questions tonight, by the way, and please fill out the survey, even if you're a person that doesn't want a lot of change. For example, one of the questions on the survey says, if you would only want to improve, asks if you'd only want to improve things that are there. For example, would you want to make improvements to the existing equestrian facilities? So please let us know what your feedback is. But that's when we'll show you in June our first plan. We'll then take your second set of feedback based on our first drawings, and you guys will say, yes, we like more of this. No, we don't like that. Add this, change this, and we'll come back in August and say, here it is, here's the plan. From there, based on our budget, we'll work out with you which are the things that we can do in the near term. What do we have budget to get done now? Emily mentioned we have $650,000, which might surprise a lot of people about how much that does and doesn't buy in actual park construction. So we'll go over that with you in more detail, but we can't do that yet because we don't know what's really on the slate or what's important to you guys. The second variable in the timeline is the overall project construction. There are a couple things there. One is if we end up designing more intensive development, the engineering and design work tends to take a little bit longer, not always, but can take longer, and there may be more environmental review required. If we end up making lighter improvements, especially in the near term that don't trigger environmental review, then we're closer to construction and can jump into it right away. So I realize that there are some variables in that question, but we have to know a little more about what we're going to do at the site before we can give you anything sharper than that. So for those of you who are saving this presentation and will look back at it, you'll see on the slide which talks about meetings 1, 2, and 3, what the schedule is for those meetings, and what to expect at each meeting. Okay.
Great, thank you. Joe, did you want to add anything about reopening or?
You know, just depending on, which amenities are either enhanced or added, we may have to develop fee schedules for those private reservation events and things of that sort, and maybe create a programming schedule for like interpretive program. And we would try to get some of that stuff mobilized prior to the park opening. But then once we're open, we'd be very interested in working with local stakeholders, nonprofits, maybe the school, to talk about programs and services that we can provide out of the park that would be of a benefit to the community. So that would be kind of the piece that we would pick up once construction has been completed.
Awesome, thank you. Sandy, I just want to clarify, I'm sorry, this is probably me. You asked if the overall park is being referred to as the equestrian park on the survey, or if we're just referring to the arena and round pen for improvements. So we don't consider this park just an equestrian park, it's a community park. And so, yes, there's an arena and there's a round pen. We can do improvements on the existing facilities, or we can also take that money and put improvements elsewhere within the park property. So in general, it's a community park with some really cool equestrian components right now. Question from Ben, he's asking, is the county considering bathrooms, drinking fountains, etc. for the park? And this is Emily.
At this point, we're considering everything. So we, again, are just going to take information in. We're going to see how that fits with the overall view from the community at large. And then also, you know, as Nick touched on with budget, there may be some things that we can do in the short term with the budget we currently have. And then maybe some things get slated for a second phase later down the road if these are things that are highly supported by the community.
Thank you. If you open the chat, if you guys can see the chat, there are links to our survey. We have it in English and Spanish. And so any comments, questions, recommendations you have, you can post them here in the Q&A and it's recorded, but you can also take those surveys. And after this meeting, we'll pull everything together. We'll give you 2 weeks to fill out that survey so we can send it out to friends, family in the area, make sure we've got a really good comprehensive response. And then we'll be able to take that to put together some plans to re-present to you in just a few months. Okay, and then Butch has a question. How many years are left on the arena lease? This would be a Joe question.
It would be, and I have to admit that I don't believe there's an active lease on this property. You know, our Department of General Services are the lead on any lease agreements for the county, and I have not been made aware that an existing lease exists here. If any of you have contrary information, please email Nick and he'll get a hold of me so I can look into that. But as of right now, there's no active leases that the department is aware of on this property.
Great, thank you, Joe. Oh, Sandy, this is great. So she says, just so you know, when I'm in the arena with my horses, they draw a crowd of adults and small children, which always turns into an educational experience for the kids. They love it. I love to hear that. That's exactly what we want. People, you know, spending quality time outside and enjoying nature and getting to know each other. Really, a park is a place to get to know your neighbors and to make friends and to get a workout while you're at it. So very cool. And it sounds like there's definitely interest in pursuing equestrian type education stuff and also working with the community to help lead activities. So Sandy, we look forward to working with you. All right, Candy has a question. Are you thinking of having a town hall meeting for I'm assuming for the rest of the meetings? There's a lot of back history that we need. So it sounds like we need to set up a meeting with you to get a little more history on the park property that might be outside of what we currently have. We would love to have a live in-person event. I think post-Orange Tier, that is definitely an opportunity. Right now, we're unfortunately stuck to virtual meetings, but we really, really hope to be able to do a live in-person event for at least one of the future public meetings coming up. And Candy also says there are 10 acres. That Candy was leasing at the bottom 5 for the equestrians. They had it in the community plan, or we had it in the community plan for fire and rescue. Okay, this is good to know. So recorded, we'll definitely touch base with you following this meeting to make sure we've got all the information there. Let's see what else is here. Is it possible to allow the survey to be submitted offline? A town meeting can be hosted. Yeah, so you know what we can do is if filling out the online survey is just not for you, some people just don't appreciate that type of feedback, we could send you a copy of it if that's helpful, if we get your address. Otherwise, you know, we do collect information during these meetings virtually. And then of course, if we can have a live in-person event, we would collect information there too. We just, at this point, based on public health guidelines, we can't, but we're just fingers crossed that that's just right around the corner. All right, any additional questions or comments? All right, Ben, has the county considered acquiring the property to the south of the park, directly across the street, which would help enlarge the park property? That is a great question. Is that maybe an Emily question or Crystal?
I do not know actually if we've looked at that acquisition. It's my team that works on the acquisition side of the house, so I will definitely look into the history of that. Something we can look into as part of the project, but I do not know.
All right, thank you. Okay. Oh, and here's one more. Butch says, are all the speakers here tonight Parks and Recreation employees, or are they private companies? I can speak for myself and for my entire team. We all are all Parks and Recreation employees. Like I said, I oversee marketing and public outreach for county parks. So a lot of I do is just in communications, but we've got some excellent project managers that have joined us tonight, and we are all 100% many hours working Parks and Rec employees. And we're always hiring. So if you're interested in a job in Parks and Recreation, please let us know. We would be happy to discuss that with you. All right, Candy says, across the park is privately owned, and at one time it was offered to the county. She gave us her phone number. Perfect. Awesome. So we will reach out to you to get some more information on that. Thank you so much. It's, we see great properties all the time. It's just really tough to find ones that have topography that works well, that have easy access, and also that have willing sellers. So we always try to start those conversations, especially when it's a property adjacent to an existing park property that would just kind of expand that open space for wildlife and also for recreation. All right. So anything else, I would suggest definitely reaching out to Nick. We put his email address in the chat, and we'll show it in the next screen as well. But he is your go-to for all things about this project. So feel free to ask him literally any question that's related to this park. He can help you out with that. I'll do my part and post things to our website and to our social media channels. And if you had any trouble, if you didn't receive the flyer, if you have any trouble taking the survey or prefer a printed version, just let us know. Either message us on social media or reach out to Nick, and we'll be sure to take care of you. All right. And Jeffrey is commending the staff, doing great out there. Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate that. Okay, I think with that looks like all the questions we have. We can hand it back over to Nick. Oh, sorry, one more.
Oh,
One
sure,
more.
right.
Apologies. Are we aware of the water level in the park? Would that be a Anna question potentially, or Emily?
I'm happy to answer as much as I know. We did have a wetland delineation conducted on the park to make sure that, and we did a thorough analysis as well for background as part of the environmental analysis for the park.
Great. All right. I think that is it. So Nick, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, and thank you for being such an awesome team member and coworker, and thanks to everybody. Thank you to everybody who joined us tonight for the feedback, for the discussion, for the questions, even for the concerns about whether or not you received notifications. That matters to all of us. We really do want you to tell us what's important at your park. That's what we want to do. So thank you all very much for taking the time to help us do the right thing. So as we close, I want to remind you that our discussion and updates will be saved to our project page at sdparks.org. And you can always contact me with any other questions or concerns related to this project. That's my email address right there. It's a little bit long, I'm sorry. Nicholas, Nicholas, .Ferracone, F like Frank, ERRACONE, at sdcounty.ca.gov. Nicholas Ferracone at sdcounty.ca.gov. And as I said, the South Lane County Park does already have a webpage. We're posting things there. The survey is live there, and we'll continue to post updates as we move forward. Thank you again, everyone, for your time tonight.